That's me, Cal. And there's Robbie.
And this is our band, Dancing on Tables.
This is Dunfermline. And this is where our journey starts. Loopmaniac Studio.
That's us, recording a session for The Loop, a new music channel produced and broadcast from here.
And it turns out, the studio building has a very colourful past.
Seemingly, Joe Cocker played here.
When we found that out, we decided to do a bit of digging.
Which led to more digging, and the realisation that there were more stories to tell.
So we made a film about this building and some of the other lost venues that have helped shape the soundtrack of Dunfermline, the Old Grey Toun.
Did Joe Cocker actually play here?
To find that out, first we need to go back to 1967, the year of the Summer of Love. Friday, April 14th, 1967, Sound 70 opens its doors. Blast Off Friday.
Chart hits, Blue Beat, ska.
All played from a jukebox in the corner. Turntables wouldn't arrive until much later.
242 metres in the medium wave band. This is Radio Scotland.
Radio Scotland had operated as a commercial pirate radio station until it was forced to close in 1967.
One of its most popular DJs, Bob Spencer, was given a twice-weekly night in Sound 70, bringing his love of Northern Soul and Motown.
Bands from the surrounding areas, but also some bigger names were lined up.
The Chadettes,
The Pathfinders,
The Poets, Soul Generation,
Joe Cocker.
So he did play in this building.
Friday, 23rd of August, 1968. Joe Cocker plays Sound 70 to a crowd of not much more than 100 people. To think, just one short year later, he was to play to 400,000 at Woodstock.
What's with the boat, Robbie?
That's the RMS Mauritania, at one time the most luxurious ocean liner in the world. And there's a reason I tell you this. Picture it, 6 a.m, 4th of July, 1935. A lone piper plays as she makes her final voyage into Rosyth to be scrapped. The interior is auctioned off. The magnificent wall panels would later become the backdrop to the stage where Cocker played.
Nice. Here, there's something I found out. The studio building used to be a sauna.
Moving swiftly on to our next lost venue. (1955). Rock and roll had just hit, and St Margaret's Hall was the place to be.
Bands were springing up everywhere, and Dunfermline was no different.
Big bands, dance bands, rock and roll bands.
Check out the special attraction this night.
But this musical legacy was to come to an end under mysterious circumstances.
22nd of May, 1961, a boxing tournament is held that night. Afterwards, the caretaker locks up as usual.
But in the early hours, disaster. The hall is gutted by fire.
Now, there are a few things you need to know.
The lease for the hall was due to transfer to a rival promoter the next day.
The lease had gone back and forth regularly between the two.
Two of the boxers from that night had worked for the promoter about to lose the lease.
And one of them had previous for arson. Are you keeping up? We'll never know what really happened that night. Nobody was ever prosecuted, but one thing is for sure.
A rival venue in the Old Grey Toun went from strength to strength after the hall's demise.
We'll get to that later.
Sadly, St Margaret's Hall could not be saved and had to be demolished. The site now houses an extension to the Carnegie Library.
From here, we go a short distance up the road, but a million miles away from the emerging rock and roll revolution.
This unassuming close leads to a cellar, which played a pivotal role in the Scottish folk music revival of the 1960s.
The Howff was the brainchild of John Watt, a local musician of some note. The Kelty Clippy and Pittenweem Joe, his best known work.
This was a place to gather as a community, to pass on traditional songs, to tell stories, a place where the songs came to life.
This is how songs were kept alive and passed on to a new generation.
It was a small place by any stretch of the imagination. People crowded round the stage, keen to be as close to the action as possible.
A venue so small, instruments and cases had to be stored above the pipes that ran along the low ceiling.
You can picture the condensation, the smell of cigarette smoke, the sounds, the atmosphere.
As well as the traditional songs, there was no lack of social commentary here.
It's up with a rump and flying, it's up with a rump and flying, it's up with a rump and flying, and Dunfermline Kennedy singing anti-Polaris, anti-Polaris, anti-Polaris.
Anti-Polaris and Dunfermline Kennedy.
Gone yourself hen! You can't beat a good protest song.
Some of the people now recognised as folk music superstars passed through this intimate venue.
And every night there would be a floor spot.
Anyone getting up to sing?
Anybody could get up and do a turn, encouraged by the unique atmosphere of this cramped space.
Barbara Dixon pinpoints her floor spot as the beginning of her career. Just ask her.
When the man said, would anybody like to sing, which is what they did, that was the beginning of my career, really.
The Howf spawned numerous other folk clubs in the town as people experimented with a more electric sound.
July 28th, 1968. A Barbara Dixon appearance marks the end of gigs in this historic venue.
The venue fell foul of new fire safety regulations and closed the next year.
But by that time, its influence had spread far and wide.
A wee interesting fact, the incredible string band who played the Howf also played at Woodstock, just like Joe Cocker. Woodstock, the defining moment of music history in the 20th century. And two of the artists who played it also graced the stages of Dunfermline.
Do you think there's any others?
To find that out, we leave this magical place and travel round the corner to a mecca of more music memories here in the Toun. The Kinema ballroom opened its doors on Friday the 23rd of December 1938. The dancers' mecca.
A touch of class and glamour in the old grey Toun.
Here's band leader Jack Jackson on the opening night with an array of beautiful women.
And this is Kinema hostess Cherry, a much-loved figure of the time. If dancers got too close, they were soon to feel her presence over their shoulder.
But after 2 decades of great success, times they are a-changing. Rock and roll music has gripped Dunfermline.
New manager Cecil Hunter, or Cecil as he was known, gives local band, the Zephyr Guitar 4, a regular spot starting the 19th of May, 1959.
Teenage Night, featuring...
Spot the unfortunate mistake.
But, under pressure to stick to its dancehall roots, this experiment is abandoned in the October of the same year.
Not to miss out on a potential money spinner, a promotions company, Ballroom Enterprises, has been formed to put on gigs in other venues.
Do you remember the story of St Margaret's Hall? Following this event, the shift away from the dancing to make way for the bands of the time is accelerated at the Kinema. The venue goes from strength to strength.
A new extension is built, and by 65, the acts being booked to appear are like a list of who's who in the music business.
This goldmine of bands continued through the 60s and early 70s.
As these big acts came through town, local bands would find themselves as support. One of these bands was the Shadettes.
This band would later emerge as one of the biggest rock bands of the 70s, but more about them later.
The Kinema sees a resurgence with punk and new wave. Once again, queues snake round the corner. The Clash played the venue twice, and in 1978 filmed their gig for the movie Rude Boy. This poster is from their first appearance on the 24th of October 1977. Check the very unusual spelling.
This was to be the end of a golden era for the ballroom. As the 70s drew to a close, the focus shifted from live music and the venue was transformed into a nightclub.
It now lies empty, with plans to convert it to commercial use. A sad end for an iconic building.
Another venue going strong at the same time was just across the street.
This grand building was built by the Dunfermline Carnegie Trust and opened in 1912 as a women's institute.
Requisitioned by the army in 1939 for the war effort, it was handed back to the trust in 1945.
The halcyon days for this venue began when it was bought in 1963 by the Rio Stakis organisation, the birth of the Belleville Hotel.
The place where the Chadettes, the band that would go on to be one of the biggest rock acts of the 70s, changed their name to Nazareth. Their last gig as the Chadettes was Sunday 1st of February 1970 over the road at the Kinema, and they play their first gig with their new name in this very venue.
The Skids also chose this as the venue for their first gig, a band which inspired so many to follow in their footsteps.
The Belleville changed hands in '82 and Johnson's was born. This incarnation closed in 2017 and the building now lies empty, the end of an era.
From here, we take a stroll through the beautiful and peaceful Pittencrieff Park to the Glen Pavilion.
But it certainly wasn't peaceful this day.
The Skids headline a benefit gig in aid of the Chilean people who are suffering at the hands of a brutal dictator.
The gig is promoted under the banner Venceremos. Also on the bill is local band Monologue. Let me set the scene. The gig was organised by the Chile Defence Committee and the local Communist Party, with the crowd being made up of supporters for the cause.
At least one member of Monologue was an active Communist Party member.
So when a couple of comments from the stage during the Skids set antagonised some of the crowd,
tension starts to mount, but the trouble really starts when the Skids play their next song, Contusion.
As the guitars kick in, so does the chaos.
Scuffles break out in the crowd. Suddenly,
the power is mysteriously cut and the plugs are smashed.
Rumour has always been rife about who was responsible.
The police?
The organisers?
The support band?
So, who done it?
Well, it was actually none of the above.
And today, after some gentle persuasion, we can reveal that this act of sabotage was actually carried out by...
Wait. Remember, nobody likes a grass. We can't tell them.
So, what are we going to do with him?
Anyway, as we dropped him off safely, we found out he was only responsible for pulling the plug out.
And the last thing he remembers was one of the Monologue roadies walking past with a hammer, muttering the immortal phrase, "They'll have a fucking hard time putting these plugs back in."
That was the last major gig in the outdoor stage. Sadly, another lost venue of the old grey Toun.
With all these venues now gone, was that the end of Dunfermline as a musical force?
Anything but. Bands get stuck in.
They did it themselves. They got their mates involved.
They put on their own gigs. Their mates put on gigs. They released their own records.
Their mates released their records.
New venues have filled the void.
New promoters have taken up the hallowed mantle, just like back in the day.
And now, bands and artists embrace the marvel that is technology. Embrace the fact that they can reach a global audience at the flick of a switch. The possibilities are endless, which takes us full circle. Back to this studio, where we recorded our session for The Loop. When Sound 70 opened its doors here in 1967, who would have thought that today, music would be broadcast to the world from this very building?
You're too delicate a thing to be found in the wings. I'm right in the middle, holding it up with all the rest. And I'm singing songs of tomorrow's people, songs of tomorrow's adventures. The legends laid bare, the time is here. The poems in Rome, there's no place like home to stand by the Toun. It's too much to handle, and sometimes I don't feel myself. But the man in the mirror is telling me it's for the best. And I'm singing songs of tomorrow's people, songs of tomorrow's adventures. The legends laid bare, the time is here. The poems in Rome, there's no place like home to stand by the Toun. There's no place like home to stand by the Toun. I'm singing songs of tomorrow's people, songs of tomorrow's adventures. The legends laid bare, the time is here. The poems in Rome, there's no place like home to stand by the Toun. There's no place like home.